Okay, so requirements documents are already graded. Already graded. I finished. That's why I was a couple minutes late. I was just finishing up the two people who turned them in right before class. Um, so they're already graded. You already have comments. If it tells you to make a change and resubmit it, just do that. By the end of the weekend or something like that. I'll update the grade. But let's talk about the specifications document for a few minutes. And for most of yours, if the requirements document was fine, I just gave you kind of the generic blurb. Make sure you kind of explode this into a lot more detail for the specifications document. So what you should do for the specifications document is start with the requirements document. And then for each of your bullet points on that requirements document, you want to fill in maybe, whether it's a couple of sentences or it's a couple of maybe 2 or 3 more bullet points that talks about exactly how you are going to accomplish that task. For example, if your project required a database, you might, in your requirements document, you might say, set up and host database, something like that. On the specifications document, you're going to say, this is the database I'm going to use. Maybe you say, I'm going to use Firebase. I'm going to host it on Firebase's main server. You might list that the amount of data you're going to use is small, so it'll fit into their free tier, so you won't have to subscribe to it or something like that. If you're going to have an authentication system, you talk about what technology you're going to use behind the scenes. That's probably going to connect into a database as well. So what you're doing in the specifications document is you're telling me in detail how you will solve each of the problems. So the requirements document is the what, the specifications document is the how. Okay? But it's not to the point where you say, I'm going to write these 7 lines of code. That's not what you're saying. That's when you actually go and implement it. You will implement the code. The specifications document is you're going to be telling me, you're going to be selecting all the different technologies you're going to use. So this week is going to be spent really looking at, researching your project as a whole, looking at the various technologies to decide what are all the puzzle pieces I'm going to be using for this and how are they going to fit together. That way, when you get to week 8, you're not still trying to decide what kind of database management system you're going to use or what programming language you're going to use. Am I going to use Visual Studio with C# or am I going to use, am I writing an iPhone app and you're going to use Swift with Xcode? What am I going to use? Those are all decisions you're going to be making in this next week. Now, that doesn't mean that you might have to shift. Maybe you make a decision this week based on good research, but then something you stumble upon on week 3 or 4 or 5, kind of says, oh, I didn't think about that. Then you might have to step back and say, okay, I really need to move over to this other tool because this one's not going to do what I thought it was going to do for me. That's acceptable. So then you go back and maybe you come and talk to me about it. We think through that and make sure that that's not going to cause more problems. You use this one and say, okay, well, this isn't going to do what I'm going to do. Then you haphazardly say, I'll switch to this, and this causes 3 other problems. You're going to want to think about why you're switching and whether or not you're really solving a problem, or it's like, well, it just seems too hard to do it here. And all of a sudden you break 7 other things because you switch over to this that seems like an easier tool to solve one problem, but creates a whole bunch of other issues. All right, so the focus this week really needs to be kind of bringing together all the players that are going to be part of your project, whether it's products that you need to order, software you need to download, accounts you need to create, all these things, and thinking about these technologies, and more importantly, how they're going to interface with each other. Don't just say, oh, well, I've worked with MySQL before, so I'm obviously going to pick that. And then, oh, I'm going to use this, and then, week 5, you realize these two don't know how to talk to each other. Just MySQL wasn't one of the valid options, but you picked it because you like MySQL or something like that. You want to think about your whole system and how they're all going to talk with each other. That's what this week is all about. That makes sense? So read a lot of stuff, think about the interfaces between these different products, and think about how you're going to use these different products to solve all the different requirements that you've listed on your requirements document. Make some sense? All right, so questions about the specifications document. At the end of the day, this guy's going to effectively be your paint by number for your project. So you should be operating off of the specifications document for most of this semester as you just kind of go through it and build out your systems. All right, so any specific questions you want me to cover or talk about? Going once, going twice. All right, I will see everybody on Tuesday.